There's a movie you can blame for Disney's entire strategy over the past decade. All those Marvel sequels, all those Star Wars spin-offs, all those live-action remakes of their own cartoons, freaking Snow White. One film flopped so hard that Disney basically stopped taking chances on original ideas. And the crazy thing is, it was made by one of the most trusted directors in Hollywood. Before we get into what went wrong, you need to understand how much was riding on this thing and how much goodwill the people behind it had earned. Back in 2015, Disney was on a roll. Pixar's Inside Out and Avengers Age of Ultron both came out that year, and they had this tiny little film called Star Wars: The Force Awakens coming out in December. They were already in early discussions to buy 20th Century Fox. Things were going well. So they decided to try and kickstart another live-action blockbuster franchise based on a theme park attraction. They'd made literally billions of dollars with Pirates of the Caribbean, so why not try again? And they had just the guy to do it. At that point, Brad Bird was untouchable. He directed The Iron Giant, which is now considered a masterpiece. He did The Incredibles and Ratatouille for Pixar. Both were massive hits. And then he made the jump to live action with Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. $695 million at the box office. As one rival studio executive put it, when a guy like that comes to you with an original idea and Clooney is part of the package, you'll take the swing. Disney signed a 7-figure deal with co-writer Damon Lindelof, the guy who created Lost. The project started under the working title 1952 before becoming Tomorrowland, named after the famous section of Disney's theme parks. Here's how confident everyone was in this project. Brad Bird was offered the chance to direct Star Wars: The Force Awakens. That movie went on to make over $2 billion. He turned it down because he was committed to Tomorrowland. That's how much he believed in it. The cast came together with George Clooney, Hugh Laurie as the villain, and a young actress named Britt Robertson in the lead. The budget climbed to around $190 million. To put that into perspective, Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation that same summer cost $150 million. Ant-Man cost $130 million. Even the original Pirates of the Caribbean only cost $140 million back in 2003. So this was a massive budget even by blockbuster standards. On top of the production cost, Disney spent over $150 million on marketing and distribution. This was supposed to be their big summer movie for 2015, a massive tentpole to launch a franchise. Lindelof himself was cautious about that, though. In an interview, he said, "Look, if this movie is successful and they want to make another one, I think there are plenty of other stories to tell in this world, but our ambition was to make a self-contained movie with a beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't set up a trilogy." Originally, it was scheduled for December 2014, but it got pushed back several times before landing in May. That should have been the first red flag. So what went wrong after that? A lot of things, actually. But let's start with the marketing. Disney decided to sell Tomorrowland using a mystery box approach where they kept everything about the movie a secret. Don't explain the plot. Build mystery. Let the intrigue sell the movie. Problem is, this works for Christopher Nolan. It worked for J.J. Abrams back then, but those guys had built-in audiences who trusted them. Tomorrowland was an original movie based on a theme park that most people don't have strong feelings about. The trailers were confusing. The premise was impossible to explain in a logline. Star Wars can get away with cryptic trailers because people will show up no matter what. Tomorrowland was an original IP. There were actually reports months before release that Disney internally knew they had an awareness issue. Nobody had heard of the movie, nobody knew what it was about. And Disney's marketing did absolutely nothing to fix that. They ran the same minimal access press junket they would use for an Avengers movie. That works when everyone is fighting for time with the filmmakers and stars, but Tomorrowland needed Disney to actually get out there and explain the movie to people. Instead, they just coasted like this was a guaranteed hit. It wasn't. And here's the really messed up part, there was no twist. The whole secrecy thing was protecting nothing. Brad Bird talked about this in interviews later. He said because we were secretive about it, suddenly that became, oh, they must have an M. Night Shyamalan twist in it. And then when there wasn't a twist in it, they were like we were promised a twist. I don't know what to do about that stuff. I'm just trying to tell a story. The secrecy was basically a stupid gimmick that backfired. Tomorrowland opened on Memorial Day weekend of 2015 in 354 IMAX theaters alongside regular screens. It came in at number 1, but only made $33 million for the weekend and about $42 million over the 4-day holiday. For a movie that cost $190 million to make, that was pretty much a disaster. It was the worst Memorial Day opening for a big-budget movie in years. The last time Disney had stumbled this badly with a summer tentpole was in 2013 with The Lone Ranger, which opened to just $29 million. There was no family movie opening for another month until Disney's own Inside Out, so Tomorrowland was expected to play well over the coming weeks. But then it dropped almost 57% in its second weekend to just $14 million. That killed any chance of it breaking out. The competition that summer certainly didn't help. Mad Max Fury Road was still doing great business. So was Pitch Perfect 2. Avengers Age of Ultron was in its fourth weekend and still pulling nearly $22 million. The Poltergeist remake also opened that same weekend and grabbed another $22 million. Then more movies kept coming. San Andreas with The Rock came out the next weekend, then Spy, then Insidious, and then Jurassic World opened on June 12th and took over everything. That movie made $1.6 billion worldwide and became one of the highest-grossing films of all time. Tomorrowland never had a chance to build momentum. There was always something bigger pulling audiences away. By the end of its domestic run, Tomorrowland had made a very disappointing $93 million. Worldwide, it scraped together $209 million total. Against that massive $190 million production budget plus another $150 in marketing, Disney took a huge write-down, at least $140 million. It became one of the top 10 biggest box office bombs on record, and Disney stock fell. Here's where the story gets bigger than just one movie flopping at the box office. The interesting thing is that Tomorrowland didn't stir up media or shareholder uproar the way John Carter did with its $200 million write-down, but it made studios think twice about spending this kind of money on original ideas. The analysts were the first to call it. One analyst said, "There's a reason you're seeing more sequels, prequels, and known properties. You never know how films like Tomorrowland or Jupiter Ascending are going to turn out." After Tomorrowland bombed, Disney got scared. They started canceling original projects. Tron 3 had been in development for years. It was killed almost immediately. Disney decided to focus on its more established IPs like Star Wars and Marvel. If it didn't have built-in brand recognition, it wasn't getting made. We're still living in that reality. If you've ever wondered why Disney just keeps making sequels and remakes and franchise movies, this is a big part of the reason why. Brad Bird went to director jail. Despite being one of the most acclaimed filmmakers of his generation, he didn't direct another movie for 3 years. He was frustrated that his original idea didn't take off. In interviews, he said, "I'm not against sequels. Many of my favorite movies are sequels, but I do worry when it's taking up more than 50% of the big-budget bandwidth." When Bird finally came back, it was with Incredibles 2 in 2018. That film opened to $182 million domestically, biggest opening weekend for any animated film at that point, almost double what Tomorrowland made in its entire theatrical run. It proved Bird still had it. But since then, he hasn't directed another feature. It's been over 6 years now. One bad swing and even a legendary career gets put on hold. The sad thing is that Tomorrowland did eventually find an audience. In later interviews, Bird was pretty chill about what happened. He said, "You just do your best telling the story, and then it's like a child. It goes out into the world and does what it does."